Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're going to be talking about The Way of the House Husband in its various incarnations, from the manga to the anime to the live action shows. Today with me I have Yesh and I've got Dylan. Welcome guys, how are you doing?
Hi.
Hello, doing well.
I'm your host Christopher. Welcome to our podcast. But before we get into that, we're going to be doing a couple of news stories that stood out to us this week. And I have two I want to bring up. We're getting a lot of revival animes lately, and quite old ones. As we pointed out a little while ago, we're getting a Trigun new series, and now we're getting a new Princess Mononoke anime next year.
Wow.
Reimagining, apparently.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of other things as well that are being remade. I guess Japan's always a bit late to the party with some of these things, so maybe it's Japan's era of the remake at the moment that's just starting to begin.
I mean, I might be showing my ignorance here, but wasn't Princess Mononoke like a reattempt from like Nausicaa? Was something some lineage like that where it was done in terms of Ghibli, where it was done like one film was made. It was like a good film, but it wasn't quite what
They wanted.
what Miyazaki wanted. Yeah.
Maybe true, but they're very different movies.
Yeah. No. I accept that. I'm just wondering if it's not now like a third reiteration down the line. Just can't get this damn thing the way I want it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess that'll be cool to see when it eventually comes out.
Now I'll definitely watch.
And then I wanted to bring up the most disappointing yet most interesting news I found in this week. Is that I found someone did a poll of about 500,000 cosplay posts online, and they have determined what the most popular characters are for cosplayers to play. And rather unfortunately, none of them are very interesting. And what they've done is they've got the top 10 cosplay characters out of all those posts, and all of them are female because it's on the internet and that makes sense. And the top two are Naruto characters. Hinata and Sakura are the top two characters, and that is the most boring conclusion that I could possibly think.
Yeah.
And then the third character is Rem, right? But not the Rem you're thinking of. It's the Rem from Death Note, which I found strange.
Okay. I mean, if we're talking about a wider appeal, maybe modern anime is a little bit less wide appeal, and Death Note was like very widely spread in its era.
You would think it would be Misa, though. I mean, she is on the list, but it's not her.
Misa was a little bit too crazy for some people.
I guess so.
Although Rem, well, never mind.
Sure. But there's one male character on the list, and it's Levi from Attack on Titan.
Yeah, Levi has been husbando #1 in anime communities for years now.
Indeed. But yeah, that's it for me. What do you guys have for us?
Go for it, yes.
Cool. I've got two little stories. They're not very important, but I just wanted to bring them up. The first is Asus ROG, which is Republic of Gamers, their gamer brand,
Yes.
have released an EVA set of equipment and motherboards, monitors, keyboards, mouse mats. I have pasted an image of that into our shared Discord, gentlemen, if you wish to have a look. But long story short, they have RAM with Type 01 pasted onto it in RGB. Their motherboard has an image of 01 in their covers for the power delivery, and their graphics card has EVA 01 on the metal backplate. It's an interesting collaboration.
It's the ugliest set of computer hardware I've ever seen.
That must
Actually,
have
that's
might
not
be
entirely
acceptable.
true, but It's
But
the
the
English
mouse
one
and the
I've seen a company try to sell me.
Fair enough. The mouse and the keyboard are horrific, in my opinion. The graphics card is also kind of terrible. But I don't mind the motherboard or the CPU cooler. Those are fine.
It actually reminds me more of Reboot for some reason.
Yes, yeah, actually, that's fair.
Yeah.
That particular color of purple would fit in Reboot more. And then my
And maybe it
second
might be more
story
appropriate.
is a little bit more of a giggle fest than an actual news story, I would say. Microsoft has decided to end support for Internet Explorer and is removing it from Windows innately so that it now can be uninstalled and so on and so forth. Not a problem for most of the world, as Internet Explorer is disgusting and bad for most people. But Japan, legendary for its slowness in moving on from things, has found that 49% of companies polled, and they tried to poll all companies, still use Internet Explorer as a core part of their accounting systems and centralized computing networks. And its lack of support and removal may actually be a very significant problem for many companies.
It's actually a problem for us as well, because our fiber backbone uses it as part of the installation process.
As part of the installation process, yes. But we don't have 49% of all companies are finding that they may not be able to operate now.
Yeah, Japan is legendary for finding something they like and then sticking with it.
Just never changing. So I thought that those two news stories together were an interesting, like, looking into the future and looking into the past moment.
Do you remember it was around early 2000s when optical character recognition started getting implemented
OCR.
In Japanese printers? And they did this specifically so they could receive a fax, scan that fax into a digital Word document, edit the Word document, print that, and then
And
fax
fax
it on.
Yeah, that's about right.
Anyway, what do you have for us, Dylan?
Yeah. Two small stories. First one, the main one for me, is that the Tokyo Assembly recently passed through ordinance that sets the groundwork for them to issue same-sex partnership certificates. So just sort of progressing that front quite far ahead, which
Right.
is nice to see. And then the second one, which is a nice light story to end on, is that a bottle of Yamasaki 55 single malt was sold for $600,000
Wow.
very recently. 2 years ago, 2020, they were selling at $22,000 a bottle. So whoever cashed in on that investment cashed in big time. My word.
That's like a couple of houses in terms of
It's
profit,
amazing.
isn't it?
And like Yamazaki is good. I'm assuming that bottle is something else, but it's a 55-year-old aged whiskey, so it is quite a rare thing. But yeah. That's a lot. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot for something that, doesn't actually necessarily have any history tied to it. You hear like about people recovering like bottles of whiskey from the Titanic and that sort of thing.
Yeah. No,
Going for those sort of
definitely.
prices. Yeah. That's crazy. I suppose I do have one more story, and it may lead to giant robots, so I just have to talk about it. Is that Japan and South Korea are attending NATO meetings now, and this is how every giant robot anime backstory begins, right? It's always basically America starts some sort of global war, and for some reason Japan is producing the giant robots that get involved in that sort of war, or can produce a spaceship with giant robots on it or something like that. And I don't know, I guess fingers crossed,
Just recently, we did a story about how Japan has produced the upper torso of a giant robot to repair electrical lines. And
Yeah.
months later, they joined NATO.
Right. Coincidence? I think not.
And with the release of a potentially potentially real GAI, it's all coming together, boys. It's all coming together.
It's suspiciously like the plot of Code Geass, you know,
It is. It is, though.
because China and Russia are the bad guys in the story.
Oh, no.
Okay. Anyway, so let's move on to our main topic, which is Way of the House Husband, Gokushufudo, which is Gokudo is like the Yakuza, right? Characters are like the extreme way, I guess. Again, I guess that is like, I don't know, a way of referring to Yakuza in Japanese fiction. But the Shufu would be like a house husband, I guess. I'm not sure if it's an invented term or not, though. Because it would be like a stay-at-home dad, I guess. Would be the term we'd use. But I think the writer of the manga did it kind of as like a sort of joke thing, because it's incredibly uncommon in Japanese society for there to be any sort of stay-at-home male figure in Japanese life. Although you say that, I say that, and then like I've seen some videos about people who are doing that being more and more common. So I guess it's not necessarily a thing that doesn't really happen in real life. But yeah, so that's what the thing means. The title.
English translation was
The Way of the House Husband.
Changed into The Way of the House Husband.
But it's not incorrect, though, right? I mean, if you just add the extreme way of the house husband, it's correct, basically. Because the do part is like it's like the character for like road. And that's how Japanese express like a way of doing something, your path to doing something. Anyway, I watched everything that was on Netflix to do with this thing, and they have two things on the international version of Netflix, which they produced themselves, which is the anime, which is pretty good, and additionally to that, they have a live action 5-minute short of the main character from the anime tending to his house. It's the most artificial house set I've ever seen. But I guess they had a limited budget. I think they also shot it during the pandemic, so it's just him by himself mostly, and obviously a very low budget thing.
This is the one where he's just doing tasks, right?
Just washing a mirror for 5 minutes, right? Or something like that.
So it's interesting because in the anime they look like they're in like quite a simple apartment, like.
Yes. Yeah.
Meanwhile, in that live action 5-minute short series, they're in like a house. Right. And it looks very nice. I think it would be quite opulent.
Yeah, and there's two live action shows. There's one that is on Japanese Netflix, so if you have access to that somehow, you can watch it. I think it's my favorite incarnation of all of them. And in that, they have like an even nicer house, It's like double story, modern, it's got a garden. They also have a daughter in that version. Although I don't think it's... I think it's like he's not the father of that child in the story. But yeah, I mean, she works as like a graphic designer, I want to say. I think that's consistent in all of them. But she's obviously doing fairly well for herself, at least in that show. To have such a nice house in the suburbs in Tokyo. It's probably quite expensive. Okay, so I think let's start with the thing everyone has watched, right? Which would be the anime. I'm more interested in what you guys have to say about it first. So maybe Dylan, you can give us like what your feelings are in general of it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it when it came to Netflix specifically, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's very short. It's all short format episodes as well. I think they're like 10 to 12 minutes. Very slice of life. There's almost no sort of continual plot line throughout the whole process. It's like a character exploration. And it's very cool. You get to meet him and all these characters from his past, his Yakuza past, and a lot of them seem to settle down into these more mundane roles. So you get an ex Yakuza boss that owns a crepe. It's not a delivery van. It's like a food van.
Yeah, it's like a crepe buffet kind of.
Buffet. You
Yeah.
get like a female Yakuza boss who I think is in charge of a grocery shop.
So she is the wife, kind of, or like the
Yeah.
the main like lady in the Yakuza gang.
Mm-mm.
So what's his? I don't know. His name is like they call him Taco Bus, I guess. Like octopus bus, I guess, is maybe the
Taco.
thing because of the way his mouth looks, I guess, with that scar. But so she's like his right hand lady, and they sort of imply that they're in like a husband wife kind of arrangement there. But he is the boss, but she's in charge of him. So so the implication is basically she's in control of the Yakuza gang, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, you definitely have that dynamic, which is it's not uncommon for the wife to kind of have the final say, right? And then you have Masa, he was the apprentice, right, or like the underling
Yeah, he's
in
the
his previous incarnation, and then he chooses to follow his boss in learning more domesticated skills, and he's just like it's comedically bad at it, right? As he's learning how to do things.
right. I think
But
the
it's
word
great.
they use is disciple.
Mm,
So he's like yeah, he is the underling character.
that's it, yeah, the kohai. But yeah, I mean, in and amongst all of this, you basically have these sort of adventures where there's an absurdly serious tone applied to very mundane tasks, because the whole idea is that you're taking someone who comes from such an extreme lifestyle into it, and they do it very well in the anime. It is quite funny like how intense he gets about certain things, and everything has sort of this sort of double meaning, like mundane phrases or mundane interactions have this sort of double meaning of having like threats of violence or criminality behind them.
Yeah, so he's there's like a knife salesman that comes around to their house, and he sort of comes up to the apartment, knocks on the thing, and he sort of walks out there with like a bloody knife, and he just sort of walks up to him. Sorry, you had to wait. I was dealing with something in the back or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And he was just like preparing dinner, cutting a fish open or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's where most of the humor in the show comes from.
Mm. And it is very funny, legitimately. I really enjoyed it for that aspect.
Is it something that is legitimately good, or is it just novel? Is it actually like something
this
you'd
is-
watch if it wasn't just this kind of weird premise of this Yakuza being a perfect little housewife character?
Look, I mean, I think the format supports that, right? Because it's short format, and within that 10-minute episode, they actually split it into, I think, 2 or 3 completely different segments. It's technically, you can think of it as like 6-minute episodes.
Yes.
It doesn't get boring then, because you're not trying to follow this sort of overdone storyline. There's a lot of, sort of ADD switching between different scenes and different small tiny vignettes, if for want of a better term for it. So I think the format supports it. I think it's genuinely all right. I don't think it's bad in any way. It is certainly novel for me. I don't know in terms of Japanese humor if it's novel, because Japanese humor often relies on subversion of expectation to get the punchline. They set up your thought process down a specific road, and then they take a 45-degree dogleg backwards. But with that said, I think there's a lot of character acting and a lot of character comedy, so it could work in that sense as well.
I mean,
I think the characters are very well done, in the anime at least.
Absolutely. I think the characters and the setting are the strongest point of the gag.
so I just want to say about the live action. They did like a thing in the show where they brought in the live action. They got like a really good live action lookalike for the original television series, and then the Netflix 5-minute thing, they brought in the voice actor to play the character, and I wonder how you guys felt about him being this Yakuza type. I thought, I don't know, I thought it didn't fit. I thought he just looked like a normal guy on that little 5-minute short thing.
So I didn't. I watched the 5-minute short live action format, and I didn't find it too destroying. But then again, I haven't had the pre-biasing of having watched the 2020 live action actual series. I think if you've got that, then you'll sit and start to compare. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have it, so I didn't really notice too much of a disjoint there.
No.
And it was too short format and too sort of banal for me to really kind of overly scrutinize it at the time.
I guess it is just like a thing that exists on Netflix for.
Yeah, I mean, when I say
some
banal, I
reason.
don't mean boring. I just mean, there's no there's no plot to it. There's no, it's just there for mild entertainment
Okay.
and to teach you how to wash clothes.
I mean, okay. As an anime, does it work? That's the question here. Because I think as a TV show, it's maybe one of the best Japanese live-action TV shows I've ever seen.
TV shows. I can see how this would work better as a TV show, but I will say, as an anime, I really think that the Netflix anime is a real shit show. The words are great. The acting is okay, the voice acting. The comedy that's being presented is great. But it's okay, for anyone who has watched any hentai, there's always that fear that your favorite work of hentai is going to get done by Honeybee, who are famous for this exact method of animation, where they draw 2 frames and they use a computer to just morph them slightly to imitate the idea of motion.
Yeah. No, they definitely took sort of the easy road into as like saying animating it is kind of difficult because I can't put the quotation marks.
It feels like they colored in the manga panels and did very little.
Exactly.
Little
This
else.
looks like somebody took a manga panel, made one more frame, and switched back and forth between them, with the occasional like adding in an animated mouth moment.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to try and put it in the category of other anime because I don't think that would work.
Exactly. If you try to view this as an anime and you ignore the good writing and the good characters, if you just look at the anime side of this, the animation side of this, rather, I should say, it's horrific.
It's interesting
real
visual
bad.
media to me. It's not like I wouldn't really call it like an actual anime.
Netflix animation is so strange because sometimes they'll dump like a huge amount of money on an anime, and it'll be really, really bizarrely good for what it is. Like, I know they funded some of, if not all of the second season of Takagi.
Yes, yeah.
And
that's incredibly done.
That the animation on just a high school girl's head turning slightly at an angle is. There must have been dozens of man hours just spent on like moments like that.
Mm.
And this, it looks like they hired one guy with After Effects, and I don't know, maybe he had the benefit of an editor to
Let me tell
finish up
you,
the
I am
work.
of the firm opinion that there are more frames in Takagi turning her head in that one scene than there are in the first 5 episodes of this show.
Right? No, there's a lot of still shots in this. And
And I know that this is not going to be something that I conform with the two of you two on, because it does fit the show in a way. But I found the up and the ed just terrible for the introduction to a comedy
oh, for sure,
or slice of
they were
life
awful.
comedy. Like, I get the idea that we're trying to get the idea of a Yakuza type character in, but like, bad call.
Those fit into the like ugly but cute genre for me for op-eds.
Yeah, but
Like I won't switch it off, but it
it doesn't help me get into the mood for the show. That's my problem. My actual biggest problem is it does nothing to help me enjoy the show. An up needs to hype me up in a shonen. It needs to get me ready for drama in a drama. This up did absolutely nothing for me. Because it suggested a high action, high octane moment, and then I went into fucking still frames 3D.
Yep.
It's so weird because I love this series so much.
Is the series
and I've I've been aware of it for so long, and I remember seeing the original kind of preview thing they did on Netflix, on YouTube, to try and sell it to people, and it just always was such a good idea that I was so excited when it eventually got made into anime, and the actual animation is terrible.
Horrific.
But it is just the plot from the manga, so it's still good in that way.
By the fact that the writing is still good, and the voice actor was trying to give it his all as well.
They got Mao Mao to be the cat-ish. It's
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a bit. She's a big name,
and the cat is one of the better characters. Fucking awesome cat,
right?
So I want to talk about the perspective of a manga reader just quickly as well. Because I've given you my opinion about the anime now. I think the anime is a letdown in many ways. I will say I am perhaps someone who made the mistake of trying to binge this show. I watched it on Friday in an attempt to just I thought it was short episodes. I could just get it all out.
Yeah,
the humor
right.
doesn't really stand in a binge format.
Oh, really?
Because the problem is that the joke is the same joke over and over again, for the most part. 90% of the jokes are innocent bystander confused that he's a horrific villain, or current Yakuza afraid of his ex-Yakuza thing, or his wife beating the fuck out of him by accident because she's sweet on the outside but incredibly powerful.
She is very violent.
And individual moments are really well done. But when you try to watch this thing back to back to back, they do 3 manga chapters in each episode approximately. And
Something like that, yeah.
I watched all 10 episodes in about an hour and a half or something. So I got 90 retellings of the same joke over and over and over again. And with the manga, the chapters come out once a week approximately.
Right.
So I get my little dose of the joke. I usually enjoy it. I usually laugh. Or the cat is just cute and horrible.
Right.
And then you carry on with your life. But the joke becomes I will say, this is a lot like Sakamoto. The joke becomes old if you do too much of it all at the same time.
You're not wrong.
But it's very funny individually.
So let me try and sell you on the live action. I know that's not really like a thing you're normally into, Yash, but they're 43 minutes long, standard like Star Trek episode length, right?
Okay.
And they deal with a maximum of 2 chapters of the manga in each one of them. And they've also been adapted for television, so they're not exactly the same as the manga.
Yes.
And one of them deals with the breaking of the character, the little shoujo magic girl character figure that Miku has.
Mhm.
And that happens.
Yes, yeah.
That happens in the anime as well, I think. And like the resolution for that is really good because it takes the full 43 minutes, and you get these kind of weird characterizations of things. So he knows he's going to get beaten to death if she finds out about this. So he goes and he covers it up as best he can, and he's in fear for his life throughout the whole episode of her finding out. So every time she glances at the shelf where it was, he'll cover it up somehow, and he'll do everything to distract her. And he goes and he goes to a hard-off, like a used hardware store kind of thing.
Mhm.
Not hardware, but like they sell like figurines and secondhand figures and stuff like that in Japan. And he goes and he tries to buy a new one of these things, but it turns out it's I want to say like $2,000 or something. So he has to go and sign up for like a bunch of part-time jobs. And the one who's at the supermarket where the Yakuza lady works, right?
Yes, yeah.
And she's like, "Why are you doing this? You're signed up here. You're working at the cafe. Da 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 da." It's like, "Oh, it's nothing. I can't talk about it. I don't have enough time left." And so like, she gets the wrong idea. She thinks he's sick and needs money for some sort of surgery or something.
Mm.
And so there's a funny subplot that happens as related to that, where like the neighborhood association like bands together to try and save him. And then there's the police characters. One's like an old, like proper police guy, and the other one's a young otaku who is also a police officer, and he wants that character as well. So he's starving himself throughout the whole episode so he can spend his entire paycheck that month to buy it. And there's this weird, like, funny competition thing that goes on throughout the whole thing. And it just works better, I think, than, as you say, like a 15-minute thing where, he does something, Miku finds out about it 5 minutes later and beats him up. I don't know if I explained that very well, but it's satisfying in the episode, I think, because there's a lot of time in between for other things to happen around it.
To happen. Exactly. No, I fully understand what you're saying. I think that would be wildly better.
And they also ignored some of the weirder characters in the TV series, like Bob, who is the, I want to say, Nigerian immigrant guy.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, I feel uncomfortable when they do things with Bob, because it always feels a bit racist. So maybe it's just better that they didn't include him. And I really like Masa is maybe one of the better characters in the live action show as well. Because they kind of like develop him over time.
Okay.
And he kind of has more motivation for wanting to be like a disciple of the, way of the house husband kind of thing. Anyway, so that's my rant on that over, I suppose. Would you guys watch the live action?
Yeah, I would watch the live action.
What about you, Yash? You represent the more mainstream view on that, I think.
I think that no, I really don't think I represent mainstream very much. I don't watch live stream at all. Like I don't watch Western or Eastern live stream.
Yeah, live action, yeah.
Live action, yeah.
No, but I mean, like, would you just not watch a live action Japanese television show because it's not something you'd really want to watch?
I mean, if it was important for like the podcast or something, I would watch it. But I would never watch something for myself that was live action, probably.
No, I think that's like a thing. That's what I'm saying is the more mainstream thing is people are interested in anime. They're not interested in like necessarily like Japanese
TV show. From
TV
Japan.
shows or
Although,
books or anything in particular.
I feel like that attitude is starting to get eroded quite heavily because a whole bunch of Korean TV shows and or like short shows have
Korean TV is so much
really
better
popular.
though than Japanese TV.
That's the problem. That's the issue. Korean TV is just wildly better.
But I will say this version of the TV show is actually so well shot. It reminded me of like quite a high quality, maybe like late 2000s, early 2010s kind of Western TV show. So I mean, you can get like really good Japanese TV shows as well. I think they make so many of them that most of them are really bad.
While our cast doesn't have a wide audience, what's the name of that band from Korea that's like the really popular boy band?
Oh, what they do that weird like heart thing with their thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have no idea.
I can't remember. They've gone on hiatus for a little while,
Right.
which means there's now like 300,000 or 400,000 Korean girls with maximum energy and nothing to spend it on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to expect Korean TV to become even better for the next 2 years, probably.
Yeah, no, Koreans have like a thing about their quality control that just doesn't really exist in the Japanese industry. And I don't know, it produces things that are way better looking, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And Korean movies in
Cinematically.
particular look just as good as Western movies. But on the other hand, you don't get as nearly as much Korean stuff as you get Japanese stuff because, you know, you just
Weebs.
churn out as much Japanese cultural material as possible, and that becomes anime or really low budget television or both. Usually Japanese anime or manga get 3 or 4 incarnations into live action before someone actually does it well, or they give up on it. Like, GTO had like the manga into the anime into the 1990s TV, and then we got the 2000s, and then the 2010s had theirs as well, and now there's like a set of movies coming out for it. So it just seems to like keep churning up. And this has been the same with this, except in a much shorter time span. So I don't know. If you really like a product, I suggest maybe looking for these additional ways of enjoying it.
Mm.
And if you can understand Japanese, there will probably also be like an audio drama associated with these products. So worth looking at. Would you recommend it though to anyone?
The manga, yes.
So Yesh would recommend the manga. Why?
In a manga format with the ability to read at your own pace, comedy just hits better, in my opinion. Because
Okay.
I find the hardest thing to get right in comedy is pacing. And with the written format, you get to make the pacing for yourself.
In general, I wouldn't recommend it. Like as a general thing, I wouldn't recommend it. But for specific personality types that I know, yes. If I think that they're going to enjoy this kind of fast-catching humor, and then it's done, then I'd totally recommend it to someone.
I think I'd recommend it to almost anyone, maybe especially like men. It seems to be. You'd think from the subject material that it might be offensive to some people, but I think because it doesn't take itself seriously and because it's like this weird comedy, you can kind of recommend it to anyone and they will probably enjoy it for what it is, without maybe criticizing it hugely. I mean, given like the fact that it's like a weird stay-at-home dad, and it deals with like crime and stuff like that, you'd expect there to be like some sort of controversy about this. You'd have thought you would have heard something weird about We Have the House Husband, but I haven't heard a single thing bad about it, except maybe like the quality of the anime. I would recommend only the live action, I think, though, for people to maybe would you like watch the first episode of the anime and see if you like it?
Yeah.
Because it's very much the same tone, but if out of the 3 or 4 incarnations, I'd say that for sure the television series is the most enjoyable way of consuming this. Dylan?
Well, I mean that pretty much goes in line with what I was going to say. For specific personality types, I would recommend the anime at least. I still need to watch the live action when it becomes available with good subtitles.
Right.
That's the thing for me. But yeah, and I mean, in terms of the shorter live action format, like I wouldn't recommend that at all. It's just like like you say, like an add on. It's a peculiarity that I suppose doesn't take too much time to go through.
It probably didn't cost any money to make, and I don't know. If you just wanted more of the house husband kind of character, there he
That's
is.
it, yeah.
Right.
Mm.
But yeah, that's I guess that wraps up the way of the house husband.
Mm.
I'm sort of surprised there isn't more to say about it, but it is kind of a simplistic property.
Exactly. I mean, the episodes, well, for the anime are short, right? So it suits it to have a short discussion on it.
Yeah. I guess with that wrapped up nicely, thank you from me, and thank you for listening. Ciao for now, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Ciao.